So in this segment, we're going to be talking about the Senate votes against plan to scrap EU-era laws. So this is about the EU Retention Act. The Senate has voted against the plan to scrap EU-era regulations after the Welsh Government claimed it, quote, undermines devolution, end quote. So unless specifically kept or replaced, thousands of EU laws will automatically expire at the end of the year under UK ministers' retained EU law bill. So the bill has been delayed, and I'll talk about that in a separate video. I just thought it's worth talking about this one, which just in the context of things like devolution. So Conservatives say the bill is going through the UK Parliament, delivers on Brexit promises by slashing, quote, red tape, end quote. And I don't remember mass deregulation being a part of the Tories manifesto, and this puts the power in the hands of ministers. Some of these ministers are absolute clowns. Let's have a look at a few. Theresa Coffey, for example. Dominic Raab, still somehow in a job despite the bullying allegations. Jeremy Hunt, moron. Grant Shapps, aka Michael Green. James Cleverly, that's just to mention a few. This lot will be in charge of which former EU rules stay in place. Does anyone have faith in them? Because with Kofi, we see record levels of sewage dumping in the waterways, and she's done nothing to stop it. With the UK joining the CPTPP, how many of these members will want more deregulation from the UK? So this is just very ominous. Labour and Plaid Cymru's Assembly members voted to withhold Senate approval for the bill. The symbolic move does not stop the bill going through Westminster and coming into force. So this makes a bit of a mockery of devolution. It looks like most of the Union countries are against the bill. I'm not sure about Northern Ireland without Stormont being open, but given this bill will make it harder for GB to trade with Northern Ireland, and it creates more regulatory separation, I imagine the DUP will be against the bill. Sinn Féin I'm not sure about, but given the bill will impact other parts of Northern Ireland, I'm not sure how Northern Ireland will be impacted by the bill because of Northern Ireland is in the EU single market for goods, so it should be quite interesting to see what Sinn Féin have to say about it. For water quality, Northern Ireland seems to be fine, so there's a question mark around how impacted they are, around UK, broader UK rules. But the Scots are against the EU deregulation bill, and are the Welsh. So that's confirmed 2 parts of the Union are against the bill. But we don't know even if England are for the bill. There has been little consent given. This is a Tory slash and burn. There's been barely any consultation for this bill, and it looks like businesses are very much against it. If the bill is enacted, ministers would have to decide whether to keep laws which were adopted by the UK members through its membership of the EU. Critics say it gives too much power to government ministers at the expense of Parliament in Cardiff, which, it does. Ministers will decide what's kept and what's, gotten rid of. And if they don't kind of, overtly put into law which things they want to keep, they'll be axed. These rules will be axed, and people might not even know about it, even the ministers. There will be no parliamentary vote on this, so this bill is a really bad idea. Welsh Government Counsel General Mark Antonov said the, quote, ideology-motivated, end quote, bill places, quote, immense power in the hands of government ministers to bypass parliamentary scrutiny and democratic accountability. It is a threat and undermines devolution, end quote. He said, how can devolution be looked at as a success when the devolved governments are not consulted on much? How much damage will this bill do for Welsh exports, for example? Wales exports a lot of agri-food. There will be more standards checks when they export to the EU and to the rest of the world. So how does this bill help them? But you've got this genius here, Conservative MS Darren Miller, said environmental protections would not be weakened, quote, one iota, end quote, and the UK government would uphold workers' rights. He accused the Welsh government of trying to, quote, reopen old wounds, end quote, and, quote, refight old battles. Saying, I know it's an inconvenient truth that you don't like to remember, but the majority of people in Wales voted to leave the EU, and one of the things that people have expressed concern about was the unnecessary red tape that sometimes the EU foisted upon businesses, farmers and people across Wales, end quote, Mr. Miller said. And in Wales, this guy must be the king of clowns. Did the majority of people in Wales support this bill? Did the majority of Welsh people actually support Brexit, or was it mostly English people in Wales? They don't even support the Tories, the majority of people in Wales. What unnecessary red tape is he talking about specifically? He does not say. Is he talking about, the EU's regulations around clean water? EU law was not foisted upon us. We played a key part in forming EU law. How will it help farmers by further reducing their exports? How will it help people across Wales when we don't know anything about which regulations will be kept? We might get rid of any consumer protections, and it will take months for us to find out. On upholding workers' rights, the Tories are already weakening the power of strikes through their minimum service requirements. So this argument that workers' rights would not be weakened is nonsense, because they've already done it. The chair of the cross-party legislation committee, Labour MS Hugh Davies, said the Senate might need extra meetings in the autumn to cope with the big workload the bill creates, saying, quote, "The bill presents a real risk that the Senate will be bypassed on decisions being made in devolved areas. More importantly, we are greatly concerned the bill enables ministers rather than parliaments to significantly alter the UK's regulatory and legal landscape," end quote. The bill is delayed, this kind of EU retention bill. I call it the EU deregulation bill. It's delayed, but regardless, the bill will keep being talked about. Businesses will be concerned, for a race to the bottom, and this thing will keep kind of chasing and dogging ministers for a while because, they decided to play stupid games and they're about to win some stupid prizes. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.